he's publishing in various media about the tracks. So thank you for coming, Kathy.
Welcome, everybody. First of all, I want to thank you, Tom, for hosting us. We really appreciate it. We're really happy to be here in Chapel Hill. Those of us who get into journalism, I think we all have something in common, which is we're fiercely interested in the world, right? We get kind of obsessed with explaining what we learn about the world really well, as eloquently as we can. Nobody I know is more interested in the world than Scott Huler. And he has experimented in many ways to figure out how to tell good stories about it. One of my favorites is this book he wrote a while ago called Defining the Wind. And it was a quest that started, he was looking in a dictionary in his Merriam-Webster, and he came across this definition of the Beaufort scale, which is a description of wind. And he just swooned for the language. It's very eloquent. And it started him on this adventure where he had to do a lot of research and learn how science made the Royal Navy what it was. And he had to learn how to draw, and he had to book a ticket on a ferry to Uruguay. I know that doesn't make sense, but if you read this book at will, you really should read this book. It's a tremendous book. And his latest adventure is, as Tom described, he's tracking the adventures and the trip of John Lawson at the very early 18th century. He's doing it with new tools that he's never used in a project like this before. And so I'm really grateful that you're here to tell us how it's going, what you're learning, and please help me welcome Scott Huler.
Thank you. Hi, I'm so glad you're here. This is like an actual PowerPoint, which I'm very excited about because I rarely do PowerPoints. But I would say greetings from the reporter's utopia, because it's never been a better time to be a reporter. That's not usually what you hear. You hear it's absolutely the worst time. I wouldn't say it's the best time to make a living as a reporter in history, but it is the most amazing time ever to be in the business of sticking your nose in other people's business and gossiping about it, which is my job, and I really like it. We have the best job in the world. Our job is to find the people doing the coolest things in the world, find out about it, and then tell other people about it. I don't know that it gets better than that. Even if you have a job doing cool, sooner or later you get tired of that cool thing, and you want to do another cool thing, but it's your job to do that cool thing, so shut up and go back to your oar. Whereas we get to just go thing to thing to thing to thing. We don't have to learn much, and that's really good. The best, I came to this, I wouldn't really call myself a science writer. I would call myself a writer. I'm just interested in stuff, and I explain it as best I can. But science keeps coming up, and I ended up with Skunk, this group of North Carolina science communicating knuckleheads, because of that book, the Beaufort Scale book that Kathy talked about, and she brought me to the Science Writers Science Book Reading Group, which is the Guinness Book World's Record most geekiest reading group ever. You know, it's like the A+ students in our background is crawling to get out. Like, teacher, can we stay late today? We didn't get enough reading and make enough science. Oh, more writing too. We want to do more writing. Yay, can we stay after school? Yeah, we can, okay. So we love this that we're doing, and it's really fun, and it's changing so much, as you all know. It's changing incredibly quickly, and the really good news is that it enables, I'm getting the chance now to do something I've wanted to do my whole life, which is, we're storytellers. Since the dawn of time, we've all had one tool. I'm a writer, so I have a pencil and a piece of paper, right? I'm a writer. Oh, this guy over here, he's a videographer, so he's holding a camera and he's grinding it in a circle, right? Just like in charades. And this woman over here, she's a radio reporter, so she's got a mic and she's got a headset. And all of these different things are going on, and I finally get to use all of the tools at once. You want to be, in my opinion, you want to have what I call the full Batman. You want to have the utility belt with every single tool in it. Every single tool, because as journalists, as storytellers, we all know the same thing. Stories like a kid or like a dog. If you chase it, the interaction, you're going to have one kind of interaction. But if you just sit there quietly and let it come to you, you're going to have a much better experience. You're going to have something that's as interested in you as you are in it, and that's your job, right? As a storyteller, is to transmit the story, not your take on the story. You want the story to come through you, to tell itself through you. And the more tools we have, the better. Technology, we all know this, right? Language is a tool that people thought up. It's like fire or the wheel. And the job is for me to get what's going on in my cranium into your cranium. And if I could take a, or just grab it out and stick it in yours, it would probably be a lot better and there would be a lot less complaining, at least for me. But we can't do that. So we have to transmit it through space, whether through spoken word or whether through electronic media somehow. And no matter what we're doing, we want to lose as little of the signal as possible, right? The telegraph has the same issue as the cell phone, as the newspaper. You want as much of the information to get through with as little static. So I get to do this, and this is like, everybody who's been in any kind of newspaper knows this. Is anybody here playing music? Don't do music? Okay, so guitarists, sometimes you'll be sitting and you'll be playing, and somebody will say, oh, it's too bad we don't have a percussionist here. That would really add something. And one of the guitarists always says, oh, I have a shaker in my guitar case. And everybody says, oh no. The worst thing that could happen is a guitarist with a rhythm instrument. And it's the same thing with reporters. Every reporter's like, I'll take my own pictures, okay, boss? And the photo editor's is like, maybe next time, but I don't think, because a reporter has one thing and a shooter has another thing. I was always very proud because I was the guy that the photo editor would kind of go up and go like, here, take this, don't tell the other reporters, because I could bring back a good image. I was technically terrible. I've been a technically terrible photographer my entire life. I was the photo editor of our high school yearbook, and if you go back to my high school yearbook, you will see the poorest quality of images you've ever seen in your life. But many of them are framed very nicely, and they're composed images extremely poorly created. Well, now, as you know, I don't have to know anything technically. Google will do that for me. Every tool has all right, this looks like a mess. Press one button and we'll just clean it up for you, shall we? I'm like, thank you very much. I like that. That's a great idea. So the last piece that was always waiting for me was the piece of the web, of creating a website, of all that kind of stuff, which is really, really hard. And I never wanted to learn how to do it, and I never wanted to learn how to code. And I always had opinions about design, and, opinions are not worth much. And for this project, I've done everything, and it's been so much fun. So let me tell you how I got to this project. I started out as a reporter, like everybody. Everybody can write. By the time you're in second grade, you can write something down and you could ask a nosy question and get a good answer and then tell everybody about it. You're a reporter, right? That's the easiest job in the world. Shut your mouth, open your eyes, listen, get the quotes right, and make your word count in your deadline. After that, if it's good, so much the better, right? But it's a pretty simple job and we can all do it. But when and because like I said, I just have fortunate an eye for composition, I could shoot. And that was a second skill that I had in my pocket. When I lived in Nashville for a year, I accidentally became a radio reporter where I went into wanting to do a commentary, and they told me that they were commentaries because even if your commentary is good, if you run a commentary, the program director gets 8,000 commentaries from everybody in town who thinks they can write, and no program director wants that. So he said, well, you should report for us, though. And I said, well, we're glad to do that, as long as you understand I don't know how to do that. And they said, here's a big box, here's a big microphone, talking to this end, go out and bring me some radio. How you train people, in my opinion. It's great training. And I did, and worked very quickly on Miranda staff. And if anybody here has ever done radio, you know that the first efforts of most people to do radio, you tend to listen to their tape, and it's like, and then you fast forward, and another 5 minutes, fast forward another 5 minutes. It's people talking into microphones, which is not radio. And one person out of 100 maybe would come in to the office and say, I want to do radio. And I would tell them what they told me, here's your box, go bring me some radio. And one person out of 100 would come back and say, you know what? When you change gears in your car, it makes a noise. I can't record that noise. Do you want to hear it? You're like, you're in the club. You get it. Radio is about to tell stories. It's not just reading out loud the stories you've already told. That doesn't use the tool. Well, it's the same thing for images. That your image needs to push the story forward, or else it's just a pretty picture. Your video needs to push the story forward. It needs to have a job. It needs to be working for something, or else all you're doing is just wasting people's time on YouTube. And when there's so many videos of cats failing to get to where they tried to jump, why would you want to waste their time? So what happened was I realized that I needed, just the way every reporter, right? You can't walk out of the house without your pencil and a piece of paper, right? Sarah, you know this. And that's one of my favorite students ever. And you can't do it because the stuff happens when it happens, not when you tell it to happen. So you have to be ready for that. Well, I thought, I want to be more ready. So I started carrying a little bag. And, okay, that worked. And started carrying, which was just like a purse. I don't call it a man purse. That was marketplace. They called it a man purse. I call it a purse because that's what it is. I don't need to. I'm very secure in my gender. So it's a purse. And so I started carrying that. You know why I started carrying it? Because I bought an iPhone, and it comes with a headset. Well, I got my keys, and I got my phone, and I got my pencils, and I got my pad, and I got my wallet. Where am I going to put that thing? So I bought a purse. And I started carrying it around, and that was really good, because then I had the phone, which is an incredibly powerful recording tool. You can gather sound, you can gather images, and you can gather moving pictures. And they're all really good quality. They're unbelievably good quality. What a great tool. So I thought, well, I have that with me all the time, and that's a good thing. And as I kept moving along, I started to use all these different tools. And then I came out with my next book, On the Grid, which came out a few years ago. It was about the infrastructure here in the Triangle, actually in Raleigh. And it was really fun. It was a really interesting book. I'm a great writer. You should all buy it. And it didn't have a single image in it. Not a single image, which was kind of okay because that was what I wanted the book to be like. But the website was coming out, and it was like the last possible minute where you could make someone design a website for you, and they would design something that was so impossible to use, that was such a mess you wanted to kill them at the end, which is what happened to me. But I knew the web had to have video. Video was the new thing, so I thought, well, I better learn how to play that game. So I went out and I took our little camera, our little Canon, whatever it was, and took a whole bunch of videos, and every single, Carl's seen this video, every single video, I followed a drop of water from my house to the Atlantic Ocean. It's fun, really, from the Gulf, because you know that it goes up into the clouds and then rains on my house and then comes down. So I followed it from my backyard, dripping off a tree, going down the driveway, going down the road into the storm drains, and on and on. It was a fun video, and every single shot went like upstream, downstream. And that's a good shot, but not the only shot, really. A lot of times, you might want to use more than, well, so I had to learn that. In fact, the video was so bad that I never put it on the website. You can look for it online if you want to, but only if you have so much time on your hands that sounds like a good way to waste 45 minutes. But what I really learned out of that was editing video was so easy. It's so incredible easy. Everything is so easy to do. I preach, this is, you learn nothing else today. I have something to tell you. I preach the gospel of late adoption. Late adoption. You do not want to be the early adopter of anything, of anything. Why do you want to do that? That's for the people who are creating it. What you want to do is the minute it gets as easy to do as sending an email, start doing it. I learned how to do audio editing in Nashville in 2000, and I thought I was something doing this electronic editing, and then about an hour later, every seventh grader had, GarageBand. And so for a minute, I was sort of disconsolate. I thought, oh no, oh God, I had this skill, and now, but do you remember, you guys aren't old enough, those of us who have been around a while, remember when PageMaker came out in the early days of PCs and Apples, and over the course of 2 years, everybody fired their design departments and their writers because the secretary could put out the newsletter because the tool was so easy to use. And then about 5 years later, everybody hired the writers and the designers back. Because you said, yeah, somebody who doesn't know what they're doing could put out a crappy newsletter, and it's so easy to do. But if you want it to be good, you better get somebody who's good at that job, which turns out to be writers, storytellers, as we now like to call ourselves. But that's what I find constantly. In fact, as the world is overrun with junk videos and junk sound files and junk stories and junk internet, being able to create worthy content, as we call it, see, I'm not as old as I look, is great. Your skill has never been more valuable. This skill of being able to look at the world, make some kind of sense of it, transmit that sense through one tool or the other. Again, come to Papa. What are you? Are you a single image? Okay, I can take a picture. Are you moving pictures? I can do that. I can take a video on my iPhone and I can edit it on my iPhone, and I can produce it on my iPhone, and I can put in voice tracks on my iPhone, and I can put music behind it on my iPhone. I could upload it to YouTube, and I've never had to do anything but poke at my phone, which is pretty much what we all do full time now, which is fine. So that's amazing. And during this project, I have, using that little phone, I have updated my blog from barrier islands. I have sent Instagram photos from canoes. We're doing exactly what we all claim to want to do, is get the word out and get it out right and get it out quick. These tools make it possible to do so much stuff. So one of the things I learned quickly with video is that video is awful. We've all had this experience. If I'm a reporter, when I come up to you, Mary Russell, to interview you about your fascinating life, I'm taking notes as I walk towards you. If I'm a radio reporter, right, I'm waving this big mic in your face like something out of a porn movie before we've even introduced ourselves. And if I'm going to do a video story with you, you and I are going to stand next to each other while a bunch of people go like, okay, hold on, no, move over, what time, God. Well, that goes on for 45 minutes. And you and I have to stand and not talk about what we want to talk about, blow it. Then when we're on video, it's going to look like we've talked about it before because we have. So we stand around and we talk about our breakfast or our kids, and we can't talk about politics because then we'll get mad at each other or get mad at the other people. And so it's just this enormous amount of wasted time. So I said, here's the job. The job is to be a one-bag videographer. Is to be a one-bag videographer. And everybody who does video, you cannot do this. This is not a possible thing. You cannot do this. So, I love when people tell me I can't do things. Voila, the single day video setup. As I talk, I'll just show you what I would do if we were just meeting and we were going to do some video work. You set up, it takes almost no time at all. It costs less than nothing. The whole project can be, you can have everything up, very high quality, video camera, and everything else for $2,000. And that's for stuff that you could probably, if you needed to, it still has a GoPro thing on, so, which I used on my last trip a million years ago. Then you pop the video camera on the top, which I can't do because I left the GoPro thing on, and you're ready to go. This thing has such a good mic on it that it'll pick up anything. Now, of course, I've got mics to connect. I bought one with XLR plugs with the extra money. Professional quality audio. That's what you need. It's why I don't use a mic with my iPhone ever. And because you can't plug it in right. But the point is, we could be going 5 minutes after we've met. And then you get quality stuff. Then you're still being a reporter. You're not being a vacuous baritone, as I once heard the TV news people. So, this bag, camera, mics, couple mics, all the usual, a little bit of lighting. Lighting used to be hundreds and hundreds of dollars. This was $30, and it's just incredibly inexpensive. You can do this. You can totally set yourself up. And then Final Cut Pro X, which is what I use, costs $300, and then you're in business. You're completely in business. Every single person can do anything, which is a pretty good thing. If you're good at it and you want to take the time to get good at it. I quickly learned that this was a little bit heavy. And as fabulous as it is, when I'm going to sit down and interview someone or I want to take some time, that's great. But actually, the life of a reporter requires an even shorter attention span. So I got a slightly bigger purse because I wanted to be able to carry books and things like that. This is now what I carry around. And the most important thing that I carry is not books and things like that. See, here's my Lawson, and never go around without that now. Is this, because what this does is give me, first of all, tripod, right? Because you need to have a tripod. So, in here, I have the top to the tripod, which we can easily put the phone on. And takes no time at all. And you are hooked up. So if I'm doing that, I can shoot like that, no trouble. And the most important stuff is your lenses, because you have to have lenses. It turns out that if you want good image, you have to have lenses. So let me show you some things. This is a cypress tupelo swamp. I think that's actually mostly tupelo, but it's a cypress tupelo swamp in South Carolina. That's what I took with my lens. Here's what I took with the wide angle lens. And by the way they work is you stick a little metal ring that comes with them onto the back of your phone. You stick it and you press real hard. That's the installation procedure. Press real hard. You won't regret it. And you take it off. And then there you go. Now you've got your lens on your phone. That's how much trouble it is. And these lenses, by the way, I'll tell you how expensive they are in a minute. So there's my swamp. There's the wide angle swamp, which you can see wide angle gives you so many options. It gives you the option to really increase the foreground. It just changes what you look like. Sometimes, now this is a great picture. I was hosted by people who were the direct descendants of the people who hosted Lawson 300 years ago. They invited me in their house for cake and coffee. Well, that's what you want. That's why I got the house, frankly, was to end up in people's houses like that for cake and coffee. But I noticed when I was thinking about it, I'm like, people's house for cake and coffee. So I needed the cake and coffee to be real clear in the image. So I'm so happy with it. It shows my hiking partner, it shows these people, and it also shows overtly this is a wide angle shot. It shows your tracks, which I think is good. You see the little stuff like that. It's just fun. And then this this little bunch of lenses that I bought also came with a fisheye lens, which I thought, well, that's fun when you want to take a picture of your nose and stuff like that. But it actually turns out to be much more useful than just an effect. This is a top 40-acre rock in South Carolina where these, of course, I'm reading your book about it, and they have these pools, these rain pools on top of it, which left at my wide-angle lens. There was no way I could be close enough to get anything interesting to look at and then get as much of a sense of what it really looked like. This fisheye, I love this picture of that. It gives you a little sense of what's going on. So these lenses give you an enormous capacity to control the image that you're sending to you, which is what you want. You want to do that. In fact, if you take apart the wide-angle lens, the little bottom part of it is a macro lens. So there's a sundew that I took, and I'll tell you the secret, those lenses, the whole bunch of lenses altogether cost $50. $50. That's what you need to spend. They're free, in essence. They are free. And images like this blow my mind. Which also brings up an interesting point, which I've been musing about on the website, which I'm going to tell you all about the trek in just a minute, but I'm musing about these issues, is that this is a photograph. This is a photograph I took at a campsite. I think I'm pretty happy with it. It's got a little foreground, a little middle ground, a little nicely composed. I think I'm tooting my own horn here. And then comes this image, which I think is a great image, and I'm really impressed by it. And Google made that image. Google said, well, nice try, Huler, and automatically created this image. You're kidding me. But I love it. It's a fabulous image. It's one of my favorite images I've made in the whole thing. It's possible that I cropped it before I put it up on the Google photo thing that I don't quite understand. But I don't recall doing that. But I know that I didn't put any of the filters on it. But anyway, so it's a wonderful image. It's a much, much better image than the one that I was glad I took. But it raises all these questions of, think about it, every time you put something on Instagram, you've got all these filters, and that's just if you use the Instagram filters. There are apps after apps after apps after apps, and they're all free, that you can do anything with these images. And it raises questions. I have no answers. I have no answers at all. The degree of nonfiction. My general take is that if you're not moving pieces of the picture around, you're on solid ground. That's my genuine belief. But I'm always choosing these real saturated colors in my filters because I like the way that looks. But that doesn't look exactly like what I saw. Then again, if I pointed the camera in a different direction, that wouldn't look like what I saw either. So I don't have any answers for that. We should talk about them. But then, that's the equipment. So how did I end up doing this insane thing? So as I do my job now, bit by bit, I include video, I include audio, I can do anything, I can fly. When I go for assignments, I'm stunned, constantly stunned by the places where when I say, do you want me to do some video with this? Do you want this? My images are the equal of a shooter's images. So they're great for when it's just me. But if I bring a shooter along, I would always do that. But do you want some video with it? People are like, really? Because everybody's website, everybody needs more content, they'll pay you a little bit more money. But I'm like, how can it be that every reporter, every freelance thing, whatever it is that we do, isn't doing the same thing? But they're not. They're not. We have people who are reporters, and we have people who are radio people, and we have people who are doing video, and I can't figure it out. It makes no sense to me. It may just be that I'm a jack of all trades and master of none from the drop. So how did this project get started, this fabulous Lawson trek? What happened was I started, when I was doing my infrastructure book, interested in my piece of land. And I wanted to know the story of the piece of land. And I started trying to go backwards through property records, and less than 100 years out, I'd fallen into a nest of developers selling the piece of property back and forth. I wanted to kill myself. So I thought, well, wait a minute, I'll start from the bottom. I'll start from the Tuscarora, who owned it before we stole it from them and killed them, and then I'll follow the road. Well, that wasn't much better, but as I was doing that, I stumbled across the story of this guy, John Lawson. John Lawson is this insanely cool person who in 1700 was a 25-year-old guy in London. He was from a family of some means, but he didn't have any kind of vocation, and he'd gone to school at Gresham College in London, where the Royal Society was meeting in its earliest days. Don't forget, when Newton's Principia came out, Lawson was 10 years old. You know, he was growing up in the earliest moments of the scientific revolution. So I like to think that to him, the scientists were like NFL ball players to our kids, that they're like, wow, that he would have seen him walking around on Gresham College. He would have thought, I want that. Clearly wanted to jump in the pool. And so he was going to go to, I'll take you around through my website a little bit just so you can see how it's organized. He was going to go to he was going to go to the Jubilee in Rome, the Grand Jubilee, the Pope had a big party every 25 years because nobody else was doing it, and he gave people someplace to go, and they sold indulgences, and they made money. And it was, I think, the Olympics and the World's Fair and the NASCAR race and the State Fair all together at one. So he was going to go do that because he couldn't think of anything else to do. And as you can see, somebody else, turns out, wrote a book about that exact thing that very year. So I'm glad Lawson didn't do it. He just wrote the less known book of that. The next thing, somebody meets him in London. And I like to think of the person saying, whoa, he was a millennial. Think of Lawson as a millennial. It was the turn of the century, technology was changing, the world was changing, everything was happening, and I'd like to think this person said to him, you could go to Rome, but isn't that kind of 17th century? You know, the 18th century is west, the 18th century is in Carolina. He went to Carolina. You know, he took his 11 hands, he crossed the ocean, made his way down to Carolina, and then at the end of December, we're not even sure why. We don't know why. Everybody for a long time has believed that the 8 lords proprietors who owned the Carolina colony asked him to do it, but we have no indication that that's true. We have no record of that. He decided to take a walk, and a journey, and for about 50 miles, he went up the coast in a canoe with Indian guides and Indian traders to the mouth of the Santee River, which was an enormous river at the time. Then he hiked out to the Santee, which turns into the Wateree and meets the Congaree and turns into the Catawba and goes up to where Charlotte is now. He sort of made his way up there, and then his way across the Piedmont, ended up in Little Washington. Saw Gurley, married her, and settled down. Wrote a book about it. Came out in 1709, which is about the pace at which things moved then. You had an experience, and 9 years later, the book came out, and told everybody about it. They were amazed because they had never heard anything about it so before. And now you don't have 30 seconds before you have to get the word out. That's okay. It's a new day. But Lawson took this trip, and I thought, I'm going to find out how close he came to my house for my infrastructure book, because if he described the land near my house, that would give me a good description of what my land would have looked like. And so then I said, well, where's the book where somebody would trace this and says where he went? And that book didn't exist, which, it's record, that's yes! Okay. So I got really excited about doing that, and I reached out to UNC Press right here. They loved the idea, and they said, here's what we can give you to write that book, which University Press is set up basically to pay university professors who are writing books on sabbatical and who have other sources of income, and I couldn't possibly do it for what they could. So we shook hands and commiserated a little bit, and I started looking for other forms of funding. and I did not want to do some kind of online thing where I begged all my friends to give me some money. That just didn't sound like me. And I want to force all my friends to buy finished books. That's what I'd rather do. And my friend Kathy said, you know what you should consider? There's this new kind of fellowship at MIT. MIT is this year-long fellowship where wonderful science writers from all over the world converge on Cambridge, and they sit around and talk about journalism like I'm doing right now, although not nearly as well, and learn about science, and then they go off enriched. Great program. Just for the last few years, I think I'm the last one ever, they had this brief program called the Project Fellowship, which instead of having to move to Cambridge, which I have a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old, that was just not going to happen. You get the big canvas bag with the dollar sign on the side of it, and you do a project, and the project has to involve multimedia, and it has to involve science. I was like, this is my project. Right from the start, I wanted this to be a multimedia project. I had wanted to be live tweeting this. I kept saying I was going to live tweet because Lawson would have done that if he could do it. I learned very quickly that I was not going to live tweet it, I was going to Instagram it. For two reasons. One, images are so much more important than the few words that I use to describe them. The second reason is that Instagram plays well with everybody. I have it set up so that I post an Instagram picture and it goes onto the front page of my, there you go. Goes onto the front page of my website. It goes onto 2 different Facebook feeds, and it goes onto 2 different Twitter feeds. Twitter couldn't handle it. Twitter just starts trembling and weeping in the corner if you ask it to do too many things. So I had to learn a few different tools and got that all set up. And this is great. I just love this, having all these images, because then no matter how long it's been, if it's been at least one day since you were at the website, there'll be at least one new piece of content right there on the front. And that's good to keep people alive and interested in what you're doing. Then I started to organize this thing, and the people at the fellowship, I got the fellowship, I cannot explain why, but I did. We had a Skype interview, and one of the people interviewing me said, look, we love your project. It's going to make a dandy book, and it would make a great video, and it would make a great series of pictures, and it would make a great website. But how can you do all this? What are you talking about? And I confess, I got a little shirty with them. I said, for the last decade, all journalists have been told is, you got to be a one-man band, you got to be able to do everything, you got to bring it all. And now here I come to the beach where I'm going to bring it all, and you say I can't do it. Where do I stand? Where is left for me to stand? And I think this turned out to be a good response because I got the fellowship. So, you have a whole budget for your project, and one of the things in the budget was a bunch of money to have somebody design a website for me. And the interim director of don't you think you ought to use one of the tools and do that yourself? That's a good point. I should do that. Part of this is about learning how to use all these tools. And so I designed this website, and and I'm really happy with this website. It's pretty, it has all kinds of weird elements to it. I got to drop this little map back there. I got to choose this cool typeface that looks old-timey, and there's just all this different stuff that you can do, including this, which is as cool as the thing gets. I'm making an interactive map of the track, and each place I go, I use the tools. Again, free tools that are as easy to use as sending an email. And so here I am. Let's see what's there. Okay, there's going to be a little bit of text and there's going to be a picture. Go over here. Where's this? Okay, that's probably where I finished the first segment. Right. Okay. Everywhere you go, there's something. That's where I parked my canoe in the campground. There's all these big honking motorhomes, and there's my little canoe on wheels. It was fun. But at any rate, so I did put this website together using Weebly. Weebly, Wix, and Squarespace were all the three that everybody was using. So I chose Weebly, and I'm really happy. I think it's beautiful. But I have learned that when I'm out, that if Weebly is not connected to Wi-Fi, as you know, like Lawson, I am making my way from Wi-Fi hotspot to Wi-Fi hotspot. And if you're not online, it won't let you write, which is infuriating. It's crazy because then you have to go on you're using either your phone or a pad. I had an iPad too, which I loved, and then it tricked me into downloading the new iOS, and so now it's Frisbee. And I'm too mad at them to go out and buy a new iPad, which is what I need. But then you have to write on some other tool and then drag and drop, which is easy with a mouse, but not so easy with fingers. And so I want to try some other websites and see whether they might work better from the field, whether they might give you more opportunities to. Anybody who's done blogging knows that you want to blog and blogging and design and organize and do everything offline and then get online and post. When you're at your desktop, you don't care. You could be online all day long. It just makes it easier to check Facebook. But when you're in the field, you don't. Otherwise, you can't be online, and so it's frustrating to be limited in that way. That's something that I've learned. Then if you go on, so I want to try Wix, and I want to try some of the other ones, but it's enabled me to do all of these things and just tell the story as I go. Now again, Lawson wrote this incredibly important book called A New Voyage to Carolina. This is the extremely poorly edited UNC Press version, and it has never been out of print. He's the most important observer of the earliest days of the colonists interacting with the Indians. Apart from all of the science that he talks about, what kind of plants he sees, what kind of animals he sees, stuff like that. And he mansplains a little bit, which is really fun. It's really interesting that he just makes up explanations for things and tells you them. And, the streams are blue because they partake of some sort of tincture from the rock. And I think because the sky is blue, I'm pretty sure. I may be wrong. And so he's really interesting character, but he's a delightful, witty writer, and he's interested in the Indians, which is what makes him completely unique among his time period. Is he didn't, there were two competing narratives, right? When people came to the North American shores, one was, "Hey, you guys, look at Canada, and there's so many home, it's all free, come on!" And the other narrative was like, "Hey, you guys, look at Canada, it's coming to the savages, come over to Canada, and then we can have it." Those are the two narratives. Lawson had this third way, which was, there's people here, we got to marry them, we got to work with them, we got to connect to them, we should take their land, don't get me wrong, we're Europeans and their savages, but we should work with them. And the other thing that he understood almost alone among this period was that he wasn't seeing Indians in some primeval state. He was seeing the very ragged end of a culture that was finishing its precipitous collapse. He understood that they were all dead from smallpox. He understood that they had been devastated by rum introduced by the Westerners. He understood what a catastrophe the Westerners coming had been, the Europeans coming, we were Easterners to them, had been for the Indians. And it didn't really make him want to stop doing that. Again, he was European and had that outlook. It was 1700, and that's how people thought. But he understood them, and he loved them. I met the vice chief of the Santee tribe, which is a tribe in South Carolina that has only statewide recognition. As every single Native American person I've met has said, we're the only minority group that has to prove who we are. And, it's like you see the people of the government saying, "Did you fill out your form, genocide X112 while they were burning your village? No, then you don't have the paperwork." And, it's this amazing thing dealing with the descendants of these people. But she grew up in South Carolina as the third racial group in a binarily state. You know, that you had white people, and then you had black people right on there. Indians didn't even. She went to a school where they had drinking fountains for the white people and drinking fountains for the black people. And if she wanted to drink water, if an Indian kid wanted to drink water, she told me the teacher, the principal, had to get a little paper cup and bring it to you. Think about that. She says she is far from her copy of Lawson, because Lawson talks about the sanities. He talks about them with admiration. He talks about them with obvious affection. He talks about them straightforwardly as just being one of the peoples of the planet. She said it was like getting her history back. The hair stood up on the back of my neck when she told me that. And I felt like, here am I, 315 years later, sitting with her when so long ago in this same part of the world, her ancestors and this dude that I'm following around had similar conversations. Who are you? What's your life like? What's things? What do you do here? What do you do for work? How do you scratch your living from the earth? What do you eat? What are you afraid of? And that's what he was doing, and I'm doing the same thing. And so in some ways, I feel like I'm doing exactly what Lawson did, which is I'm walking through a culture that's coming to the end of its rope, culture that's in collapse, rural landscapes. I come through, Lawson talks about these abandoned towns that he sees, these empty houses. Every day when I'm walking, I see abandoned houses, and I go through towns that they have tanning salons, pet grooming, and services for aging people. That's what they have, because there's no jobs, there's no work. Textiles are gone, farming has become agribusiness. It's a whole culture trying to figure out what now, just like the Indians were in 1700. And so I'm sort of cheerfully ambling down the asphalt 2 lanes of the rural South and trying to find out what happened. Now, people have known for a long time, in general, what Lawson's journey looked like. This is what I'm thinking. It's like, there's what they thought for a long time ago. This is pretty close to the most generally held opinion now. And I ran into a guy who, when I sat down with him and met him the first time, we shook hands, he said, I could tell you where Lawson slept every night. I was like, okay. Well, come to work with him over the course of the last several months, I think he's probably right. I think this dude has done the most incredible. He's a civil engineer. He's a sewer engineer. Got interested in Lawson one day, and he has figured out where Lawson went every day. And so every time before I go out on a segment, I tell Val Green, this 70-something engineer in South Carolina, where I want to go, and he helps me make sure I'm getting as close as I can to the original track. I'm not super concerned about following it exactly. And when I say that, he looks at me like I'm from Venus, because it makes no sense to him. So we're doing very different things. But he's been an enormous help. I talk to people about about science, about land use, about all the different things. Let me see, I'm going to show you one little video that, let's see. This is one that I made for the website. That's it. And cancel. I don't want anything more. So I've used all the different tools that I can. And I produced that right on film. It was just nothing. It was so easy. I took a GoPro camera, and the GoPro talks to your phone through Bluetooth. It's just this incredibly complicated thing, but that's kind of fun in a sort of not quite as easy as email sort of way. But so sometimes I would get so frustrated that I did this. My blog posts are just, I write in my journal and I take pictures of it. And people have really liked that. And then the frustrating thing about that is that, well, you can't link, right? That's the problem. Well, actually, yes, you can. You get this thing called ThinLink, which just does all that for you. It's astonishing. It almost hurts your brain. So here's a species that create the ecosystem. So then you take the DNR over there. So you can do anything. You can do so easy. It's fun. It's cool to learn all this stuff. And I'm making it up as I go along. I really don't know what's next. I keep talking to academics. Sometimes an ecologist walks with me. Sometimes a historian walks with me. Sometimes I walk by myself. The next time I'm going out, this guy who has spent, who's in GIS, who has spent a long time retracing roads, figuring out how you find old roads, is going to go out with me, and he's going to show me some old road stuff, and he's going to show me how to use old surveying tools. Remember what I've seen about the coolest job in the world? So that seems like a good place to stop. If you have questions, ask away. I'm full of answers.
So with all this multimedia work, are you gathering material for the book that's going to come out of this as well? And how does the book gathering process fit in with your daily posting, blogging, Instagramming, etc.?
What a great question. And I totally know the answer, and the answer is I don't know. I thought, I'm so stupid, I thought, well, I'll be writing this blog, and at the end I'll sort of connect the blog pieces, and there'll be my book. Yeah, sure. Book is one thing, and a blog is another thing, and so I'm blogging, and very happy with how that's going, but what the book will be is very different. And am I gathering stuff for it? Yes, constantly. Whether it's talking to experts or it is talking to people I'm on the road with, or just people I meet or anything like that, or finding sources that I need to read. I've piled books as high as anybody who's done a book knows that you get piles and piles of other books, and you just steal from them, and that's really good. But so that's a different thing. That's just going to be the next project. And the nice thing is, I've never finished a book, where I didn't say, okay, I'm done. Now I'm ready to start writing the book. I've learned everything. Now I'm prepared to start telling this story, but it's too late. They're already printing it. When I finish this trek, I will have in some sense finished it, and say now I'm really ready to sit down and tell the story, and that's what I'll do for the next few months, is sit down and tell the story. So I'm very excited about that. The downside about it all is that, when they were poking at me about how we could get it all done, they were exactly right. There's so much to do, like I'm not on the road this week or next week, because I just need to take a breath and get some blog posts up there. I found that 3 Instagrams or so a day is about right. More than that, and you're just bombarding people. Fewer than that, people don't know you're out there. I wanted to have 2 blog posts a week for sure. It's been much more like 1. And, the Belgian Parliament isn't calling up and demanding more, so I don't think I'm in any trouble. But I would like to be putting out more content. I'm going to try to get back into every few days blog rather than once a week, or else I'd die.
So how do you think having the Instagram posts and everything else that you're creating on your blog, how's that going to change your book?
Well, I think that's a great question. I think that it won't change the actual written book much, except that one of the things that I'm interested in on the book is using images, and so both this one and this one are images that I've run through filters that sort of line drawingify them. And I'm trying to, because everybody's read pictures, read books, regular, ordinary books that have photographs in them, and they look like shit, they look like coffee stains. And I'm thinking this particular one would turn a lot of these images into very sort of half-tonal images, and that's great. I think that they'll reproduce well. Now, there will definitely be a second. It's very likely that UNC Press will publish this book. Whatever they can pay me, they'll pay me. They love me, I love them. And then we'll do something electronic that'll be more like an iBook author type of project that will have the video, that will have links, that will have lots of these beautiful, exciting images that I love to share. So that will be really a sort of a new, valuable thing. And I said, do you think we should talk about like a coffee table book version that'll basically just show in pictures the thing and explain lightly at the beginning and as we go along what was going on, but not get into all the complicated matters of history and science and sociology and all that kind of stuff. And they don't think so. I do think so, but so you go to Lulu or you go to somebody and you print up 100 of those and see what happens. And if people buy them, then you print up 100 more. And so then an author has the best of all possible worlds, which is that you have a bookstore and a publisher organizing stuff for you, but you have something to sell out of the trunk of your car too, which you may want more money on. I'm here to tell you. So we'll see how that works. And I do think I'm going to do that. And we'll see. I may just be so sick of Lawson by that point that Lawson, by the way, finished things up by getting tortured to death by the Indians. So, in case you were wondering, that seems to be an important part of this story. And people who know a little bit about Lawson, which turns out to be lots of people, will say, well, I hope it doesn't end up the way, for me, the way it did for him. I'm like, well, I already married a native girl, so I'm in big trouble. And, but that's the amazing thing I found. Every time I've set out to do a book, I'm like, oh, here's my topic. This is so cool. This is such untrod space. This is a new thing. And then you start looking into it, and you run into the several hundred people for whom this thing that you've just discovered is the lodestar of their life. And you're like, okay, well, then somebody said a writer of books is like a merchandiser, is like a retailer of stories. And I think that's such a good way of looking at it. That the people, like the Al Gooding, this guy I was telling you, who knows where Lawson's been, he's the wholesaler. He's the guy who's out there, or he's actually the manufacturer. He's the guy who's creating the product. And then I'm sort of wholesaler and retailer, but I'm telling his story along with Lawson's story, and along with my story, and along with the story of the people I met at the Horatio store, the oldest business in South Carolina, all this kind of crazy stuff. Does that make sense? Can you tell my wife?
What about your relationship to Lawson and what of his stuff do you believe? And there's some stuff, some of the things that he says about Indians is just crazy.
Like when he talks about maybe the 9-foot Indian? Yeah, that does seem...
And how do you know which of the things that he's writing down and saying, the word lists and everything, which is believable and which isn't, or do you care?
Well, I do care, but I don't know. First of all, I trust an awful lot of his observations. I think he was doing his best. I mean, don't forget, it was 1700. The book that people remember as the first journalistic work of creative nonfiction, The Storm by Defoe, was 3 years in the future. When Lawson went out there to gather do his reporting, it could have been Lawson that we all look back to and say he invented creative nonfiction. But he did. It was Defoe. And observing what he could. Now, there's an interesting thing that has come up, rather be lucky than good. Val, this genius, has figured out, for a long time, people have wondered, because Lawson talks about starting out with 5 other colonials and 4 Indian guys, 3 men and 1 woman. And people have wondered who the other people were, but how could we know? Lawson doesn't tell us. Well, Val has figured it out, all of them, and he's right. I don't doubt for a second. There turns out to have his own manuscript that he wrote about trips he took a year or 2 before Lawson. And again, I didn't find these things. These things are just out there, and people have been talking about them one another, and then they'll mention them to me, and so sometime in the next few weeks I'll mention it in my blog. Oh yeah, there's this thing that nobody knows even exists, and some of the parts of it are very similar to Lawson's, and so we wonder whether Lawson and this guy Tronter were, kind of each sitting and writing like that, so the other one didn't see. Lawson was an educated man from England. Tronter was a guy who was born here in the colonies, I think. So Tronter's is much more sort of, we went here and did this, whereas Lawson's book is this expansive understanding. Tronter, Traunter, Richard Tronter. And I'm really interested in how that all shook out. And I'm not sure we'll ever know that, although Val Green will probably figure it out. And you compare the two, like Lawson tells this wonderful story of the Siwi people who figured out that they were being cheated by the colonials, that they were getting bad prices for their goods, and that it just didn't like dealing with them. And they noticed that every now and then a boat would come over the horizon, and then they'd do lots of trading, so they thought, okay, we're going right to the source. And so they loaded up canoes filled with furs and filled with everything they had to trade, deer hides and all this kind of stuff. And all the men of the tribe got in the boats and paddled out to the horizon. And they were destroyed at sea mostly by and then they were sold into slavery and stuff like that. So that story shows up in both of these manuscripts. So who told who, we don't know. It seems like Tronter, as a Indian trader, would have known it, but Lawson spent a lot of time with the Siwis. There's no telling how it all shook out, but I'll see if I can figure it out for you. But as to what I believe, I think by and large Lawson is telling the truth about what he sees. He's doing his best to explain what he sees. And he's, as you say, sometimes he describes the Indians as lazy alcoholics, and sometimes he describes them as wonderful, hardworking people. I think he did it on a case-by-case basis. Certain tribes he would go to and they would steal from. His one group was so into their thievery, he said they would steal with their feet. That's what good thieves they were. He says about one old woman that he saw that she was probably the oldest person in the world, and her skin hung in reeves like tripe. Wow. This guy could write. He was something special. I like hanging around with him to the degree that I am. I trust him that he was doing his best. And, like I said, he mansplains periodically. And I find that kind of sweet. But I'm a man, so it doesn't bother me the way it does certain other genders. Did that answer your question? Kind of? Okay. Anything else?
She wants to know about the footnotes.
Actually, there is one really good footnote. Lawson talks about many things that, all different kinds of animals that he sees. And at one point, he says that he, let's see if I can find it in, it's footnote 35. Oh, okay. He hears all this. The beginning of the night we were awakened with the dismalest and most hideous noise that ever pierced my ears. This sudden surprisal incapacitated us of guessing what this threatening noise might proceed from. But our Indian pilot, who knew these parts very well, acquainted us that it was customary to hear such music along that swamp side, there being endless numbers of panthers, tigers, wolves, and other beasts of prey. Tigers, it has footnote 35. 35. There were no tigers in this region. Could we just call that region, say, the Western Hemisphere? Like, it's like, oh, right here in coastal South Carolina, there were no tigers. But if you went up to like the Great Lakes, there was no telling. So that was a footnote. So it might be my favorite footnote I've ever encountered. Anything else? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just have a question on like how do you identify the audience for your book and for your website, especially like Instagram or Twitter? How do you gather your following and how who are the people that you're trying to reach?
Everybody, you personally, people, that is a very common question asked of writers, and I think I'm writing for people like me. People who are interested in stuff, people who are interested in history, people who are interested in science, people who are interested in this region, people who want to know how did we get here, And I don't do any like specific audience building things that I should probably be doing on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that kind of stuff. I don't do those things. I probably should, but that's just one of the things. If I had an assistant, he would have that job or she would have that job of thinking all that stuff through. As for the audience, I'm the wrong person to ask because all my books get wonderful reviews and sell like dogs. They are the worst selling books. Nobody buys my books. That's okay. I like to write them just the same. And the publishers believe that there's an audience out there, so I guess I believe it. Does that? I mean, I don't want to be skirting your question, but I don't really think about it. They always tell writers, write the book you wanted to find, write the book you wish you could be reading, and that's what I'm doing. I'm creating the book that makes sense to me, that will tell the natural history and the cultural history of this region, and I think anybody would be interested in that. This was 100 years before Lewis and Clark. Just how he got around is interesting. How he found his way, what he would have carried is interesting. I think all of this stuff is just naturally interesting. So, should we be done, Kath? I think we're done.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Everything truly you do is naturally interesting to me, and
Well,
I love hearing about this. Thank you so much for
it's
telling
my
us.
pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are we off the air? Okay. There we go.